Okay. We got her running here. Recording on this computer. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of ITSE. Excuse me. Keep going here. ITSE 2309. The date is April 12th, 2018, and it is just a little bit after 6. It's about 6:10, so I'm a little slow getting started today. Topic for tonight is Module 11, excuse me, Module 9. Get my email off of here. Oh, I guess, no, excuse me, we are in, yes, you're right. I'll get that right in a minute. We are in Module 11, Functions, and the chapter is Chapter 9. Okay, make a couple of announcements first. The Module 10 assignment is fairly easy. I just forgot to make the assignment last week. So it's still, I've got it due coming in a couple of days. Don't panic over it. Whatever. The other thing is that the second piece of this course will be offered in the fall. That is ITSE 2347. I sent an announcement out on it. Right now, the time is from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock Tuesday and Thursday. I don't like that any more than you do, probably. But if you want to, you may email Dr. Cervantes, Ann Cervantes, and ask for a different time. But right now, that's the time that's set up for it. It will be taught in SQL Server. We are going to keep the same textbook. And so we're just going to continue on with this one through the programming side of it. I'm going to do a little bit of that tonight. Okay. Oh, okay. Module 11. Student resources. Let's see, got here somewhere. There's the slides. PowerPoint slides. I guess I should start looking at those a little bit. Let me see what we have there. Sometimes these are good. Thank you. I'm told that the projector isn't on. While that projector's warming up. Oh, they're okay. I might use some of them. I'll go to the next one. Introduction to Chapter 9, a function. What is a function? A function is, if you think of, is my projector on yet? It's, I believe it's warming up. If you think of the function, for example, f of x equals, I'm going to say 3x plus 7. And that would be in terms of mathematics. Okay, don't ever, Eric, have you seen something like that in your algebra class? So a function, so if I were to look at what then is, f of 5, well, I would replace x with 5, and it would give me, I believe, if I'm having a good day, that would be 22. And so it doesn't really give me 22. F of 5 is 22. It doesn't give it back to me. It becomes 22. So what I've got highlighted in this area right here, what I'm highlighting now, really is 22. The same thing is true of anything. If I say it's a function, it doesn't change its argument. So if I had as a variable, for example, declare foo equals 5. So I'm creating a variable. Sometimes some people would say let. You'll see it written several ways. So in my imaginary language, I'm saying let foo be 5. So it's a name, and I want to talk about the function f of foo. Now that would be 22. The important point that a function does not do, it does not change its argument. A function does not change its argument. Foo stays 5. It stays what it was. It does not change. Okay? Questions? And that's what we mean by a function. Okay, let's go look at our functions manipulate strings. We got this module will focus on 3 of them: strings, numeric data, and dates. Let's get right into the string functions. Go over this tutorial. I'm going to skip on by it and get to the first one. String functions in general break down into 2 kinds. There are functions that give me information about a string. For example, the observer functions. And my observer functions just give me back numbers that tell me what the string is. For example, how long is the string? LEN. See if I can make this. Okay, returns an integer representing the number of characters in the string. In SQL Server, it counts leading spaces. However, it does not count trailing spaces because SQL Server by default strips off the trailing spaces. Suppose a string contained only spaces, it would return 0 length. Let's go back. Let's go over to our SQL Server. Okay, I'm going to declare a variable now. And up until now, we have not declared any variables officially, but since we're talking about the next class that's coming up, which is SQL programming, we're going to be declaring variables. It's nice and true, pure SQL does not declare variables. There are no variables in SQL, but it sure is nice to have one. Okay. So I'm declaring a variable. Variables in SQL Server begin with the @ sign. Okay, when it begins with that, it's a local variable. You cannot have spaces inside of a variable name, and it's typically you observe a naming convention. Notice I'm using the camel case. People have different ways of doing it. Some people use all lowercase and underscore characters as spaces. It kind of depends. The same types that you can have in a table, you can create a variable of them. In fact, you're going to see that you can create a record data type that is like one record that has like one row of your database. But for right now, this will be fine. So here's my name is varchar32, got 32 characters. Set my name equals Stephen W. Smith. That's me. You can put your own name in there. Now, if I want to know how many characters are in that, and you use the select if you want to see it. You could use print, but I like select better. Okay. Well, let's see it. If I execute that, Notice I did not get a column name there, no column name, but it shows me that you can see down there that my name, Stephen W. Smith, has 15 characters in it, counting the spaces. And if I had leading spaces in there, it would count it, okay? LEN counts the number of characters you have from the beginning of it until the last non-space character. Other platforms will count trailing spaces. SQL Server does not. Okay. That is one problem of incompatibility between SQL Server and Oracle, for example, because Oracle will tend to leave the trailing spaces attached to it, where SQL Server strips them off. Oh, well. Okay, questions on LEN. What did I do with that? So, somewhere in here. Okay. I've raised this problem of you can have a name that doesn't have any characters in it. Or maybe you have a name, but your name is just space, just spaces. It's all that's in there is spaces. SQL Server will strip off the trailing spaces, so your name will have no characters in it, but your name will not be null. So to check that name, check iname. Let's see, what is that? I guess name is what that is. Name is not null, so check that the name is not null. You're right, it's not null, but what if it's not null, but it doesn't have any characters? That is not the same thing as null, because the string with no characters is a valid string. It's the empty string. That's a hard thing to kind of wrap my head around, that I can have a name that doesn't have any characters, but you can. If you've ever done Access, one of your options on that says, first of all, is it required? Yes, no. The second one that defaults to yes is allow zero length. In my opinion, that should default to no. You should have to say, if you want to allow zero length, you say yes. If I go through the trouble of telling you it can't be null, I don't want it to have zero characters in it. That's going to really be confusing, because it looked to me like it doesn't have one there, but then it's still not null. Okay. So the constraint would be iname zero length. Check the length of iname is greater than 0. It has to have at least one printable character in it. So your name could be X. That's fine. At least I can see it when I print it. Okay, let me go through these a little more. Here we go. So 15 characters in my name, you could count them, put your own name in there. Char index. Char index is another observer function, and char index returns an integer that tells me the position of the first occurrence of the find string. So it's searching the string for this character pattern. Okay, so the find string is like a substring. And I'm asking essentially, where is S? Where is capital S in my name? Well, it is the first character. Now there's 2 of them. So if I were to execute this, I'm going to get, well, I can't, I better unselect it. I get 1 and some other junk down there. That's coming later in the file. If I change that to a V, for example, I would find the first That would come at position 4. Let's see what happens if I put in a capital V. Usually SQL Server is not case sensitive, and it does say 4 again, so SQL Server searches are not case sensitive. However, there is a setting that I can put on the server to make them be case sensitive. By default, they are not. But if I say I want them to be case sensitive, I can make them case sensitive. Okay.
So you put in S earlier with that?
1.
So the R is the first letter.
Right, the first one.
Says S is
Right, that's telling me that S is the first one. Let's see, what else? The numbering system, unlike Java and C, starts counting at 1, not 0. Okay, that's typically true with SQL and SQL languages. The first character of something is 1. In computer science, you find many times it will be 0. So we start counting at 0. Actually, we don't start counting at 0. That's not true. We tend to count the number of spaces I have moved. So I go to the first of the string. Okay, I haven't moved any, so that's 0. Now I move 1, that's 1. I have moved 2, so I'm counting the number of times I have moved. This would be floor 0 because we haven't gone up any flights of stairs, so we're counting the flights of stairs. Computer scientists tend to count the breaks between the records instead of the records. But SQL starts at 1. And we'll put that back to the S. Now, let me get the rest of this stuff out of the way. I don't want that to be printing every time. Notice that my name has 2 S's. What if I wanted to find the second S? Okay. I know that there are 2 S's, but that's all I know. Now, notice that this guy has, it has an optional third parameter. P is optional, and if not specified, it starts at 1. Well, what if I didn't know where the second S was or where the first S was? I know there's 2 of them in the name. I want to find the second one. I can't give it. Now, if I wanted to find the second one in my name, and I knew that the first one was at position 1, all I would have to do is give it, all I would have to do is give it something other than, start at 2. And that would get me by the first one. So when I execute that one, I find the one at position 11, which is the second one, STEVEN space W period space position 11. So the second S in my name is 11 characters over. But what if I didn't know where the first S was? It might come at position 10. I don't know. I just know there's 2 S's in there someplace. Okay. What about this? Select char index, find the S in my name. That part's the same. But I want you to start looking at the position of the first S plus 1. I'll let you puzzle on that for just a moment. Well, it effectively does that, but I don't know that this S is at 2. For example, what if what if we didn't know where that S was? If I said 2, if I put the 2 to start, I'd start here and I'd find this S. So if I were to, the first one is going to give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The second one will give me an 11. And you see this one gives me a 6. It finds the first one, but the second one reads past that first one. So in this case right there, I say, go find the first one. This piece of it right there, and this is commonly done. This is a real common problem that we're given. Find a first name, find the last name. Okay. And all I know is I've got 2 S's in there.
I'm only confused because to me it seems like they should do the same thing. I guess maybe in the first one I'm confused as to why.
Okay.
You have the 2 there. So
Yes.
So that 2, I thought the 2 was finding the second S.
Oh, no. It says start looking at position 3.
So what would be
Position
position 3?
3 would be 1, 2, 3. So it's going to start looking here. That's not an S, so it keeps going from there. And when it gets to position 6, it stops. But I don't know that S is in position 6. I don't know where it is. I just know it's got to be there. I know it's got 2 S's in it. I want to find the second S. Right. This one, this setup right here says the first one finds the first. This guy says find it, but what this does, this one right here finds the first one. Wherever that is, it finds the first one. Let me see if I can get it this way better. Let me roll him down some. Okay. Char index. Looking for him, and this is where I start. +1 is out there. So I start where the first one is. Add 1 to that. That's where you're starting to look for the second one. Now, you're taking college algebra, right? Math 14, 13, oh, no. What's the number there? 14. I used to remember it, but this is called composition of functions. And I'm sure you've done it in there where you have f of x and g of x, and you calculate f of g of x. Well, this is doing the same thing. I'm passing this into the function as an argument. So it will calculate, it'll return the value. This returns the value of where it finds the first s. That happens to be at position 6. Add 1 to it. Start looking for the next one at position 7. Now it goes on by it and gets position 11. If I run this one, this one's going to find position 6. If I execute that, he finds position 6 because I told you to start looking at position 3. This guy starts looking at position 7 because this one gives him a 6 +1. He starts looking at 7. I don't know where that first S is. He finds it, and that's where he starts. Scroll what does so. Let's see, like that. Usually when I have something long like that, I come down and tab over. And then I get to roll my font up.
And those 3 variables, if there was a syntax, you would call that we select character index.
Oh, you could change it. I think this will work, print. I think I can say print, and it will do about the same thing. Let's see. I may have blown it off with that second one. Let's see what this does. Print. See that if I say print instead of select, it just prints it down there. I can say print hello world, and it'll print it. I prefer select because that's what we haven't been using print, and in database we say select, and that actually, if I say select 5, that gives me a table that has 5 in it. So the output of a select statement is a table. The output of a print statement is just it prints it. I generally, very, very seldom do I ever do print, unless I just want to print some message to the screen. Shut her down, Clancy. She's a pumping mud. Question. I will give you a copy of this. A pattern index, pat index, or I usually say pattern index. I think that's a fairly standard. Sometimes you see P index in some implementations, but pattern index. In other words, go find, excuse me, the first occurrence of SMI. By the way, let me back up 1 minute here. Suppose that there was not find the index of, there isn't one. Okay, so what's it going to do? Start at 3, start looking, and how will I know if I don't find it? It returns a 0. So it pretty much, if it's going to do that, it returns a 0. 0 is usually interpreted as false, meaning it's not there. Okay. So if I want to search and I just want to ask, is it there? I would just go in there and you know, is it greater than 0? If it's greater than 0, I have at least 1. And then I could do some kind of a loop and go through there and count them. Pattern index. Where does SMI, where is this pattern, SMI? So where have we seen this before? Nothing new here, folks. We've seen it before. Remember, like. Okay. Like. This gives us a way to say, where does it begin? So STEVEN space W period space. It should begin at position 11. SMI is the first 3 letters of my last name. Therefore, I see that it begins at position 11. Question? Okay, those are the observers. They're string observers. They do not return a string. They return to me information about the string. Very handy. I use them a lot. One of them that you're going to use quite a bit is len. I build that into almost every constraint. Okay, my name now has a bunch of leading spaces, a bunch of trailing spaces. The SQL Server will strip off trailing spaces. Not all will. If I use this guy, if I say select my, select my name, notice I see the leading spaces, but not the trailing spaces, because SQL Server stripped them off. If I say select L trim, left trim, my name, then it will get rid of those leading spaces. SQL Server gets rid of trailing spaces by default, but assume that it does not, because not all do. Okay. So therefore, if I want to get rid of those trailing spaces, and L-trim is a left trim, to get rid of the trailing spaces, it would be a R-trim. Am I right or wrong? Does it make sense? It isn't. Well, I'm telling you, assume that it doesn't. So if you can't have spaces on the right, yes, in SQL Server, it is unnecessary to R-trim most of the time. But we assume it is. Oracle and other platforms will give you just a plain trim, just trim, and it trims both sides. It will not trim spaces in the middle, but it does trim anything on the left and anything on the right. In SQL Server and most of them, if I want to trim both sides, I have to do R-trim, open parentheses, L-trim inside of it, or vice versa. Doesn't matter which one comes first. One of them trims the right, one of them trims the left. Okay, and if your intention is to trim it, you should use both of them, because you really want to be able to pick up this code and drop it straight into Oracle. One thing here that Oracle has, or others will have a different way of talking about variables. The SQL Server, once we get into variables and stuff like that, we are no longer in pure SQL. We've stepped out and into our programming language. That is the topic of the next class, is the programming language that we're going to be in. The one here is called T-SQL, Transaction SQL, and we'll be declaring variables. And we'll be doing loops, while loops, and for loops, and stuff like that. Okay, writing functions and programs that use SQL. Okay. But we've stepped out of SQL. As soon as I declare a variable, I'm no longer in pure SQL. Now I'm stepped out, I'm in this programming language, but that's okay. We're going to get there pretty quickly. The other difference is that this word go, that is a batch, variable that is declared inside of here exists only in that go block. So, for example, I cannot just run this piece. If I try to I just want to run this one piece of code. If I try to do that, I get, wait a minute, it's not declared. That's because I didn't execute it. The program has ended. When the program ends, they go away. So one of the things that you find is that you can't just run a little piece of code, whereas with a pure SQL statement, all I have to do is highlight that one statement, run. Once I get variables in here, all that goes out the window. But you'll find that sometimes variables are real important, they're really good. There's some things that I just can't do unless I can set a variable and pass it down to the next SQL program. So my SQL up above could set a variable, do some stuff with it, and then send it down to be reinserted or something. Yeah. We like to say in SQL, you don't need variables. It's not exactly true. I need them badly. I really can't do any. Notice that one thing that we're missing, and well, we're missing lots of things in SQL. We haven't seen an if statement in SQL. Now we've seen that if something is not null, yes, but that's out in the language. We're missing a while loop. No, we're not. It's in that language too. So that language that we're going to be talking about next semester is the other piece to this puzzle. This class is pure SQL. Okay. R-trim, L-trim. Let's put my name back. Okay. Where is the space in my name? Well, there's two spaces in my name. There's a space here, and there's a space here. And if I say char index of the space, what will this give me back? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Should give me 7. Would you accept that? Let's find out. It says 7. So it agrees with my count. I want to get the first name out of that string. I don't know how many characters are in the first name. The only thing I know is the first name ends with space. So I've got a first name and I've got a space. My first name is not allowed to have any spaces in it. Might have to worry about that. My first name is not allowed to have a space. How long is my first name? Okay, well, it's the index of that space minus 1. Would you buy that? So, what if I said select substring, my name start at 1, find the space. So here we are again, you're going to see this composition of functions happening over and over again. How many, the substring, remember the substring, that's the string I'm searching. That's where I'm starting, remember up above. And this, delete. What does this do? This says find the index of the space. So search, give me the substring, my name starting at 1 up through the index of the first space. Are you with me? It isn't that hard. Substring says, substring takes 3 arguments. 1, the string that you're working with. That's not going to change. So my name is my name. That's what I started with. That's the variable. The second argument to substring says, where do you start? Second argument says, where do I start? And the third one says, the third parameter says, how many do you want? How many do I want? Starting at 1. Go until you find, and I got to give it a count. I can't give it, I mean, some languages, maybe you can say start at a space and go until, start at the first and go until you find a space. I have no way of saying that in SQL. So I have to say start at 1 and go until you get this many characters. How many characters? Well, go count the characters. What's the position of that space? That's how many characters I want. Okay, now let's let's run it. Execute, and look what I got. Now, take a look at that. Steven, right? My name. Guess I should have used somebody else's, but I was just typing away. There is an error in that logic. Can anyone see it? What? If there's a space at the beginning, yes, I would get that space at the beginning. I could get rid of that by saying I could L trim it. That would get rid of that of a leading space. I'm not going to. I'm going to say, well, there aren't any leading spaces, or if there are, I want them in the output. I'm going to show you a trick. It is called concatenation. The plus sign, when you put the plus sign between two strings, it puts them together. Now, that was mentioned in the last chapter, by the way. I didn't cover it in detail, but if you say plus two strings, it will put them together. It bumps them together. I'll show you some things about that. Now, if I execute this, so I have appended to that string an asterisk. Now I'm going to run it again. And notice the output. Can we see the output here? What's with the output? Can you see that okay? You can. Asterisk, yes, it says Stephen, and so in the output it says STEVEN space asterisk. So I went in there and I got the first name, but when I did this, when I said select substring from start at 1 and give me this many characters, well, what is the position of that space? That's at position 7, so I'm asking for 7 characters. STEVEN, that's 6, and then one more 7. That is a very, very common error. Now, it even has a name. That's known as the dreaded oboe. Off by 1. Kathy, do you know what an oboe is? It's a musical instrument. Let's see, it's a relative of the clarinet. It's a musical instrument anyway. But in computer science, when you say it's oboe, you're saying it's off by 1. O-B-O. There, you found an oboe. Okay, very common. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. This gets my first name. I can declare variables as I want to. Set start. Oh, here I'm getting my last name. So I know that my name has a first name, a space, an initial, a period, and another space. So the thing that tells me where my last name is that period space. Okay. So find the period and the space here. Add 2 to it. And that is where my last name starts. Will you agree with that? You act like I'm just killing you here. Well, as long as there's not an extra space. Yes. So I have to know something about it. If it isn't formatted the way I'm expecting it to be formatted, I'm going to have trouble. For example, if one of our problems is dealing with an Asian name, has the name been flipped around into English, or is it still in the Asian format? That gives us a lot of trouble, because I can't always tell just by looking at the name whether I'm looking at given name first followed by family name, or the family name coming first. Usually I can now, but because I'm used to seeing it. But I many times just have to ask the person. Okay. So I'm going to find my last name, and I know this is in the Western format. So I have my first name, middle initial, space, last name. I'll tell you. Okay. So will you agree with me that start is where my last name starts? It says find that period and the space. If that's there, well, if it's not there, I'm going to have 0. So find that. Add 2 to it, because that's going to put me, it's going to give me back the number. The char index is going to give me the number of this one.
What does the declaring do about it?
Declare, I'm just declaring another variable because I could have concatenated all of this into one statement, but I thought I'd have mercy on you and put a variable. Now I can use variables because I've shown you how to do it. So you say declare, you give the variable a name, begin it with an @ sign. I guess that's an @ sign, I don't know what you call it. And then say what it is. And now you have a variable. That variable exists until you get to the end of the go block. When you hit another go, it goes away. So I set the start to be the index of the thing I'm wanting, plus 2 to get past the space. That's where my last name starts. Select substring from my name, starting at start. How many characters do I want? How long is the whole name? Subtract the start plus 1.
Show me what start is.
Start is an integer. There's where he comes into existence. So I'm saying start. Okay, now he exists. I could have named him X. I typically, when I name variables, I keep them fairly short. I'm a C programmer, so I like short, terse variables, but not. Sometimes people will get them long. That's fine. They just have to, in SQL, in this language, this is called T-SQL. In T-SQL, they begin with that @ sign. I need to look up the proper name for that. It's probably something weird. Now, if that's set, and in my example, that comes out being set to, let's see, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Start would be 9 as of here. So if that executed right there, start is 9. But I'm saying plus 2. So in other words, I want to go past it too, and I'm going to start there. So now it's going to be 10, 11. Start it. So from position 11, give me how many characters? So go to position. So start is 11. So I'll put that little notation there that starts 11. So from my name, go to position 11 and give me how many characters? Well, how many do I want? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I want to give me, how long is the whole thing? What's this length? When it's 17, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 minus 11, 4, plus 1. So this guy when I do this, no matter what it would help. The other thing, you can't have anything selected in this. So it gives me my last name. If my last name were something weird, S-O-M-E, if my last name were something strange, it's still going to find it. Let's see, do I have any? I don't have any, can't have an extra space. And I get something strange. Where? Oh, down here. Okay, I'm saying give me the substring. My name is my name, whatever it is. I got that from the database, assumably. Okay. Where do we start? At start. Now, nowhere in the exercises will you have to declare a variable. Nowhere in the exercises will you have to declare a variable. We have not done that yet in the book. Okay, that's coming up. That's one of our first topics in the next class. We haven't declared variables. Okay, we will. Okay, so start at position. This is 11 now. Take the length of the name, length of my name, minus the starting position, add 1 to it to get it all. If I don't add the 1, I chop off 1 character at the end. Okay, I'm gonna pause a minute. Well, okay, the idea is you're pointing out it's an awful lot of work just to get that one. Just look at it and get it. But what would happen if you had 10 million of them? My first task, and I may have this in the exercises. I don't remember whether I do or not. If not, it comes up very quickly because I give it to you as a first task of probably your first programming task in the next class. I'm going to give you a file or a table which has 7 million names in it, but the names are entered in the form of last name, comma, space, first name, middle initial if it's there. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And the only thing I'm going to guarantee you is you have at least 1 character in the last name. It must be followed by a comma, it must be followed by a space, and at least 1 character in the first name. I want you to find the first name, get it into a field, middle initial, get it into a field, or null, and the last name into a field. In other words, you're breaking them out. That was my first programming task as a young teacher working for the not Austin Independent School District, but a school district near Austin. And they had their database back in those stone ages of computing. Their database was set up. Their student names were in there in the form of Doe, comma, space, John, middle initial, period. And everything was fine until they decided to print the diplomas for the high school. So when that class finally matriculated through and got to the diplomas, they were trying to print the diploma, and it came out Doe, comma, space, John. Well, nobody wanted their diploma looking like that. So it fell to me, and by then they had the whole database was done that way. So they had thousands of students in there. And they said, hey, Smith, can you fix this for us? And I said, I can do it for money. And they said, well, no, we're paying you to do this. In other words, you're already being paid. Get over there and do it. Right. And you're gonna get to do that same job. Trust me. Before you get out of my class, that's going to be part of it. Anyway, these are what you need to know to be able to do that. Replace. The string that replaces, notice it does not change my name. My name does not change. So I'm saying change so my name is going to get set to Stephen W. Smith. Excuse me. And I'm saying select, okay, what I want to see is my name with the E's changed to 3. Now that's what I'm going to see printed. It will not change my name. Important point, functions do not change their arguments. You're going to see something where they do change the arguments, but we're going to have to write that. So it's called a procedure if it changes the arguments. Functions do not change the arguments. There is nothing built into SQL that changes its argument. Well, an update is an SQL constructor function, a constructor operation that update actually changes the data in the database. So it's not a function. Update is not a function. Oh yeah. Update, sure. Use update. 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 Let's see. What was this? Where's contacts? Update. What was that? That would be in the. Yeah. Where's the contact name? Is that in?
Contact update.
Let me go to view.
Contact update has last name and first name.
Yeah. What table is that?
Contact update is what mine says.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be vendor.
Oh yeah.
Update vendor. Set. Vendor contact. I'm just going to say L name, and if that is one, that's fine. Yeah, I'm just yes. Now, if I were to run this code, I'm not. All of the vendor last names, I need, the reason I'm getting that squiggly line under there is because I didn't spell the field right deliberately, and I deliberately have not said use AP_DB because I don't want this code to run because it would wipe out my tables or really mess them up. But this would change all of the E's and all of the vendor last names to a 3. Why? It doesn't change it here. It changes it here. The function does not change it, but the SQL statement calculates the function and sets the result to that. Questions? Okay, don't run this. I mean, it's okay if you want to run it, go ahead. You've got create AP SQL. You just run that again and it puts it back. So if I replace my name with this, if I were to run this, I will see my name with the E's all change to 3s. Questions? It's 7 o'clock. I need a drink of water and a trip to the bathroom. Me. Calcadan, do you have any questions? I've turned your microphone on.
Yeah, okay, I don't have any questions, sir.
Okay, I'm going to assume, I guess you can hear me.
Yes, I'm here.
Say, if you can't hear me, send me an email. Okay, I've turned your microphone back off. So we're going to take a short bathroom break. And I'm... Okay, we've had our break. We're resuming the recording. The next piece of this is the numeric functions. The numeric functions work about, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on them, mainly because I don't want this class to run all night long. Next, I believe they're on the next page. String construct, okay, we've talked about these guys. Replace. Concatenate, by the way, is putting them together. You can accomplish the same thing, excuse me, by putting a plus between them, S1 plus S2. So it would put them together by putting a plus between them. If not, then you have this term concat, 2 upper, 2 lowercase. And there's some examples. We'll move on to the string problems. We run into issues with strings when we have numbers that are stored as strings. I advise you not to store numbers as strings that you are going to do any math on. It's kind of a pain. But remember, we have things like phone numbers and social security numbers that really aren't numbers. Those are really just character strings. Now, I can check and make sure that you have entered 9 digits. And in that case, I'll be all right. So if you want, is it important to you that these strings sort like numbers? If, for example, if I have the string, my example here is the string 1, 2 sorts before the string that has a 2 in it, for the same reason that the string B comes before AB. Excuse me, AB comes before B. So 1, 2 would sort before 2. But if I were sorting them as numbers, I'd want to see the 2 coming first. Now, the way you can get around that is always ensure that you have they're all the same length and that you have leading zeros on them. If you will do that, then you will, that'll fix your problem. The other thing you can do is cast them to integers and do it that way. But if you get something that is not, it's a typo, you get a character in there that's not a digit, casting it to an integer isn't going to work. Anyway, I talk about that problem here. Order by, so select something from contacts, order by cast ID as int. So if they all have the same amount of character, the same number of digits in the string, and that you have leading zeros, they'll sort just fine. And I talk about some issues there. Rule of thumb, I generally, if the identifier is not math, then I will make it a string. For example, if I had a social security number right now that will contain 9 digits, I would store it as a string, and my constraints would look like this. Constraint, the length has to be 9. If it's a social security number, it has 9 digits. I won't worry about the dashes. I'll put them in later. And then I'll check that the contact is like 0 through 9, all of them. 9 digits, all digits. We might have to work with this one after a while because I don't know. What have I got down here? Oh, my parentheses is running off. More difficult. Okay, this is one of the problems. I almost guarantee you that you will have this problem in one form or another. I'm going to go on to the numerics and let you read this. Strings are about the longest one. Okay, the numeric functions. Numbers are about what you're expecting them to be. Numeric functions, they take a number, they usually give you back another number most of the time, so it goes from numbers to numbers. They take a number as input, they give you a number back as output. First one that they mention is what they call the floor and the ceiling of a real number, or of a number with a decimal, either a real or a decimal. So the floor would be chop off the decimal, and the ceiling goes up to the next integer. So the floor is the next integer to the left on the number line. The ceiling is the next integer to the right on the number line. So 3.1, the ceiling would be 4. 3.1, the floor would be 3. That's pretty easy. They give you 2 others that are not mentioned in the textbook. The first one is fix, and fix rounds to the next larger, it rounds away from 0. So if you fix 3.1, it would go up to 4. If you fix negative 3.1, it would go down to negative 4. So it goes to the next integer away from 0. One more, it's called trunc, chops off the decimal but keeps the sign. So if you truncate negative 3.7, truncates to negative 3. If you truncate 3.7, it truncates to positive 3. So truncate goes to the next integer towards 0. There's 4 of them. So you have floor and ceiling, which ceiling goes to the right on the number line, floor always goes to the left on the number line. Fix goes away from 0 on the number line, either direction. Trunc goes towards 0. Most of the time you do floor and ceiling. Okay. In your math class, have you seen the ln of x? Have you seen ln and logarithms? Oh, you did? Well, here they are again. In computer science, excuse me. In computer science, if I get a drink of water, we are very heavy into logarithms. And we go log base 2. Now, the log base n of x is, when we say log in computer science, when we say log something, we mean a natural log, where you get that Euler's constant in there, that E number. Okay, that's that base. Now, the way all I need is that. I don't need a log base 10, a log base 2, a log base 5. All I need is that Euler's constant E base. And if I want a log in base 2, of 32, say, I want to take the log base 2 of 32, select log 32 divided by log 2. If I wanted to take a log base 3, I would divide by log 3. Okay. That lets me shift to any base. Most of the time, you're going to be interested in a base 10 or a base 2. I don't recall ever writing any code that I took in something different, but I could see how you might. For example, 2 to the 9th power is 512. Therefore, log 2 of 512 is 9. So I'm expecting to see that. So if I say, select log 512 divided by log 2, I'm going to expect to see this give me back a 9. And notice that it did. Now, be careful, because it might end up as you get higher and higher in the numbers. Now that is, it's an integer. It is an integer, but it's also the result of that log is not necessarily an integer. So you have to be careful about that. Sometimes in the calculation, as you get in very large numbers, you will pick up a very tiny little something that isn't 0 out there in the decimals. So you'll end up with something like 8.9999999999999 and a whole bunch of 9s, and then it ends. Well, that's not 9. There's a difference. And you have to be careful about that in computing, that you can't guarantee that you're going to get a nice, clean number 9 back from that. So you just kind of have to say, well, how close is close enough? Anyway. Okay, next part, I'm going to get through those fairly quickly. I think they're pretty straightforward in the textbook. They're not covered a whole lot. Now, when we get into dates, dates, the dates, there's a whole video here on dates. Do watch that. We have a rich set of manipulators for working with dates and times. Date time holds a value with accuracy of 3.33 milliseconds. That would be 3 thousandths, would be 300ths of a second, roughly. 1/3 of a second. Uses 8 bytes of space. It's pretty big. Small date time. So I will typically use small date time. That way I can record times to within the nearest minute. Most of the time, if you're to the nearest minute, you're okay. So what time did you get here today? Well, you got here at, what time did class start? 6 o'clock. Pretend it did. If I'm within a minute, I'm going to call it good. But that's all I have if I use small data time. So if I just use date, think of it as time with a 1-day accuracy. All I can do is give you the date. That one takes only 3 bytes, which is unusual for a data type to take a non-power of 2 number of bytes. Notice that this one uses 8 bytes, the small date time uses 4 bytes, and the date uses 3 bytes. That's unusual. Time only, similarly. Okay, an example of a problem in this class, in our AP database, I solve it using date functions. And if you were to go look at that, I tell you to go to open the AP database and scroll about 712 lines down. Now, what our author did, and I kept some of his code, and it was kind of really poor of them, but they just hard-coded all the dates. And one of the things that you'll notice in the textbook, they give you a problem that says, find all of the accounts accounts payable, find all invoices that are due in the next 30 days. Well, that code was written in 2012 or so. How many invoices do you think you're going to have that are due in the next 30 days? They're 6 or 8 years old, all of them, right? So the dates are hard-coded in the SQL. So if you look at the insert statements, and those are the author's insert statements. I don't like writing insert statements, but I kept the author's initial data. But what I have to do, I had to figure out how I was going to set that. By the way, before you do this one, run create AP. Okay, I should have said that. Run create AP again. That refreshes all of your dates. Please look at that in line 712 or so, and these are working examples of date time. Okay, I declare 3 variables beginning with that @ character in there. And I'm saying here that declaring variables, this is the first time I've ever mentioned declaring variables, but this lets you do it. Use the original values coded in the script. They're now in the tables. I find the greatest invoice value. So, what's this? I guess I should have demonstrated that. I find the greatest invoice value. How would I find the greatest invoice value? What is the greatest? I find the greatest invoice date value. Okay. Let's do that. How would I get that? I don't think I need a subquery to that. Select max invoice date. And what is that? That is the latest one is January 25th. It's been a while since I've run it. So I need to run that script. If I were to run that create AP script, it would be in the future. It would be about, be a couple of weeks from today. Okay? So I put that in a variable. Let's say I declare 3 variables. Declaring variables part of the original. They're down in the tables. So the greatest one, so I give that a name. Today's date, give that a name. And the difference, the way I get the difference is I set date delta to be the difference between the max date and today. And then I add 25 to it to where I'm in the future. So I take this guy and add him to every day in there. D. The D says to interpret the result as days. I could do it if I said W, that would be weeks. If I said M, that would be months. And if I said Y, that would be years. And it does know about things like how many days are in a month. Okay. Usually when I do date diff, date difference subtracts one date from the other and gives you the answer in in days. I'm about to get there. what's the difference between 20 and 25? So I can get that. What does difference mean? It means subtract. Does it matter which one you subtract from which? Huh? Well, it does matter. One says 25 minus 20, and that's 5. The other says 20 minus 25, and that's negative 5. So does it matter? Yes, it matters, unless the difference is 0. Right? Okay, let's look at it. I'm going to show you my wonderful code here. Okay, assume that my birthday is the 20th of June. It isn't, but I just picked that because I knew how many days it was. I believe it's, I don't know. Okay, so I set my birthday as cast. Put June 20th in there. That's the way you should set a date. Now, had I not cast that, it would have worked. But you should cast it. So I'm going to want to see you cast dates when you set them, please. Because you know how to do it now. And you know why we would do it. Now, how many days is it? The get date, and I talk about this one over here, by far and away the most commonly used function is the get date. And they all provide this functionality. However, it will be known as different names. For example, if you go over to Access, it's known as now, open close parentheses. If you go over to Oracle, it's called sysdate, system date. It's how you get a timestamp, essentially.
Same thing as yours.
Right. Get date is the SQL Server version of it. Okay. Now in Access, sysdate in Oracle. And that's one that just I never said that they're all the same. Once we start getting this up about this point, they start diverging a little bit. And so you have to know, but date diff is in all of them. So the question is, how many days is it to my birthday? Okay, select date diff in days, my birthday, get date. If I were to run this, execute, I gotta run them all. Notice that declare, notice that I have it as negative 69 days. Okay, therefore, date diff takes the third parameter and subtracts the second parameter. It is backwards from what you're expecting. So think about it. What do you expect? It's the other way. It's kind of like, yeah. Well, I was gonna turn off some power or something, but if I turned off the wrong switch, I killed the power to the computer. And he said, well, what you do is you follow the wires and you make your best guess which one you think it is. It's the other one.
Just like driving in traffic.
Yeah. Okay, so it goes this way. This one minus this one. So the subtraction goes this way. So if I want to know how many days it is to my birthday, it's my birthday minus today. So the subtraction is going in this direction. And there I get the answer, 69. Questions? A day 90 days from today, well, addition doesn't matter. Date add, it doesn't matter which one you add first. We're going to say calculated, give me the answer in days. So interpret the numbers here in days, add 90 days to today, Or let's see, when was it to my birthday? Was that 69? 69 days to my birthday. And let's change it to 69. What's the problem with you? Huh? Date add. I don't see, oh, select. Have to say print it or select it or do something with it. Now I don't have any variables in here, so I can just do this one. So it tells me that it's going to be 90 days from today. It's going to be June 20th at 7:39, 7:39, 27 seconds, and 450 milliseconds. It's pretty accurate on this time. As accurate as the computer is. Date diff works pretty much the same way to find invoices entered less than 90 days ago. Okay, this is one that's going to be in the exercises for sure, for sure. Select the invoice number from invoices where date diff. Remember, we're going to subtract from here to here. So today minus the invoice date. I'm losing everybody. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, you can put that. So remember that this is the larger number. So this is the start time, and this is the end time. The subtraction is going to go backwards. Okay, so we're going to subtract the invoice date from today, and when that's less than 90, that means that the invoice entered less than 90 days ago. Well, the date diff, the subtraction is the third parameter minus the second argument, I should say. The third argument minus the second argument interpreted as, if the first argument is D, it's interpreted as days, W is weeks, M is months. So, but the subtraction goes from right to left. I find that confusing. I wish they'd. I think had I been writing it, I think I would have put it from left to right, as it, you know, to subtract the first one, subtract the second one from the first one as you would do it. But it subtracts the first one, it subtracts the second one from the third one. Go figure. I am not going to cover this discretionary material. I'm going to mention it, I guess, probably will mention it next time briefly. This is pages 284 through 299. I'm going to let you read it. It is not part of SQL. It's SQL Server specific. Therefore, I'm not going to cover it. Okay. The case statement, case logic, essentially says case, if it's A, let's see, case grade is less than, grade is greater than 90, then you have an A. Else, grade is greater than 80, you have a B. Else, greater than 70, you have a C. Else. Finally, at the end, you have an F. None of those are true. Or you can start off and work the other way. Case logic is found in most programming languages. I'm going to let you read that. Questions?
Is that the if function?
The if. IIF. I'm going to let you read that. Okay. I don't, when I do it, when I teach it, I have to go back and read it to get a good handle on what that thing is and how it works. You may read it. I don't put that on the test, but I am going to discuss it briefly. Okay, next class period, next Thursday night, I'm going to end the lecture there for now. Next Thursday night, I'm going to make available to you test 2. It will have the same format as test 1, meaning that it will be available over the weekend. Okay, it will have a due date. I find that if I cut it off at the due date and make it, I won't accept it anymore, I'm going to have 3 or 4 panicked people coming, oh, please, I'm so sorry. So what I am going to assess a penalty if it is late. This is the rest of my assignments don't have late penalties. Tests do. Okay. If you submit it late, it will have a penalty. Depends on how late. I've had people submit them 2 weeks late. I know. What? I guess I need to get it. I don't know offhand. I typically don't make. Let me check and see if there is a practice test. Well. I don't think you can see it. Test 2, review and exam. Okay, I have a practice test 2. Practice test 2, test 2. I'm going to unpublish. Okay. Would you look at that now and see if you can see test 2, review and exam? No?
They're published at the top of that page.
No, that's oh, I might not be in the right. I'm probably not in the right class. Yeah, I'm in the WWW class. Let's get over here.
Oh, so it's web, like online class.
Oh yeah. Let's go to dashboard. Sometimes these online things can be difficult. Oh, I'm still in the wrong one. Goodness gracious, they've given me a whole lot. They've given me the new, yeah, they've given me fall of 2018. So I've got my classes up for next semester. I guess I better look at them and see what they think I'm going to teach. Maybe and see if it's the same thing I think I'm going to teach. Okay, I will make the assignment. Okay. Let's see. Okay, publish, unpublish. Just a minute. Yeah, I know. I don't want the test to be published quite yet. Okay, so you should not see test 2. You should see practice test 2, 5 points, and test 2. Okay. I'm not going to take the practice test after. When should I put the discussion, the answers out?
This week,
This week.
before next week. So
I give you 5 points for doing it, but I do want you to have the solutions. But I think that once I make it available to you, if you haven't turned in the practice test by then, I want you to try the practice test without the solutions.
you can post it like next week, early, like Monday, Tuesday, so we have time during this week.
Well, wait a minute. I'm thinking that the test is going to go live at the end of next week. Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Pardon me.
If before the test, we know the solution, so we can prepare better.
That makes sense to me, Kathy.
So when do they practice it?
Oh, I haven't. Certainly, by the time when the test goes live, it will be. It's overdue. I'm not as worried about that. I'm trying to get you guys to do it. You know, hey, I gave the practice test on test 1, and of the people who did it, they all passed the test. But lots of people didn't do it.
I know last time it was due like right around the class is due. We make it next the end of Thursday.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm on. I'm willing to do anything to get you guys to do it. I mean, if if I thought you'd do it, I'd say, okay, everybody gets an A, and we. You think that people would like that, huh?
I would really like it. I don't know about this.
They you wouldn't like it because well, you wouldn't. I mean, people don't like that. But to come into a class, I mean, as a teacher, I'd like to walk into the class and say, okay, everybody gets an A. Now let's get down to the business of learning the stuff. People would not like it. They would complain. And you say, no, not me. Well, I don't know.
No, I just meant if you go to the work to do the practice test and you do well on it.
Okay, I'm gonna let me turn off the recording. Let me turn off the recording.